What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Buck with you on a Monday in December, Buck, where the weather is cool. I'll be honest with you, I forgot going to Atlanta. I don't know why I've got this in my mind that Atlanta's warm this time of year. Getting off the plane, the Chargers, I was like, whoa, it's football weather out here. Thank God this game's indoors. How you doing, bud?
Man, I am good. It was a great holiday weekend. It was great watching a bunch of football. We're gonna get into some of the rivalries in college football that showed up, and you just love all of that stuff about college football. But then also some very compelling NFL games that I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned from those.
Yeah, no doubt. We're going to get to the NFL here in a minute. We've got a head coaching change that we will tackle as well. But I do want to start with your take on what took place college football over the weekend. Some crazy games, man. Insane games. All the fighting and the flags and all that stuff, that's already been hit on by every show under the sun. So I don't even really care about that. We can leave that alone. But just biggest takeaways. I want to start first of all, Ohio State, Michigan, and let you know how fun it is to walk into a team meal room and see Jesse Minter sitting next to Joey Bosa, sitting next to Jim Harbaugh, while Ohio State and Michigan is coming down to the close. I just sat in there. I wasn't even at some point in time. I'm not even watching the game. I just want to see if there's any interaction there that was taking place. But it was a trip.
I think that game. I think that game captures all the stuff that we love about college football. Throw the records out. Two teams that really don't like each other. Like there's a real rivalry. Anyone who has had an opportunity to go to that game and to walk into that game and to feel the disdain that Ohio State fans have for Michigan fans, like that is a real thing. And then when you go into the stadium and you feel the energy between the two participants, you know it's real. But to me, in spite of all the contentiousness, the competitiveness, the acrimony that exists between the two teams, styles make fights. And there is a confidence that a team that prides itself on being the bully always has when they've had success over a team that they view as a finesse squad. You can talk about being a tough team, but your actions must match your words. And for the Michigan Wolverines, their actions match their words, particularly in big games. They ran the football. They played great defense with Wink Martindale. Regardless of their quarterback situation, they committed to a style that is their brand. And over time, you can feel the pressure shift from Michigan to Ohio State. Why is this game close? Why are they still here? They're not supposed to be as good. We're supposed to walk all over them. Everyone said that we're superior to this team. But the physicality and toughness never goes out of style, and their ability to punch Ohio State in the mouth is something that Ohio State's going to have to deal with for years because there's a confidence that Michigan has whenever they see that team.
Yeah, look, our buddy Joel Klatt, listened to the game. I thought he was nailing the central point, which was Ohio State. Like, why are you playing into their hands? Like, Michigan is missing the corner. Will Johnson's not playing. Loveland, the tight end's not playing. So who are their best two remaining football players? It's those two defensive tackles. And you decide that you want to get into a running contest, running into their two best players the entire game. I know Ohio State's got backs, and against some teams, unleash those backs. Not this one. This one, they are not good on the outside. I saw Oregon. I was at that Oregon-Michigan game. Oregon carved them up like a turkey. And I'm sitting here looking at this Ohio State collection of wideouts going, nobody's better than these guys. They're the best group of wideouts in the country. That's where this game needs to be played. It kind of felt like, I don't know, the right way to put it, I guess we can't say it. I can't say it on here, but it was like they were trying to measure up, to put it that
Approve
way,
it.
in a
It was
physical.
It was a
Yeah, like we're gonna be tougher than you. Like no, there's other teams we'll match up and we'll out tough them. We don't need to out tough Michigan. That's who they are. We're gonna out athlete them as every other team that's beat them this year has done.
and that's the thing. And so the big thing about rivalry games, and you played in them in college, I played in them in college, and in the pros, like the thing that you have to do is you got to get your pride out of it, and your emotion has to kind of wave to your execution, meaning execution is everything. And for Michigan, they were hell bent on running the football between the tackles. They wanted to shrink the game. They wanted to get the game on their terms. And I bet if you asked Sharon Moore before the game, he would probably tell you, our goal is to get it to the fourth quarter and make it become a 15-minute game because the pressure would jump on Ohio State in a major way. And that's what happened. DJ, they were able to control the game. They were able to get it the game played on their terms. And in the end, when guys needed to make plays, Michigan made more plays than Ohio State.
Yeah, and you see it on the screen as we're talking here about the post game drama. Yeah, there was plenty of it. Guys, and players, I'm watching it live, going, I think those guys got maced. Like looking at them and like rubbing their eyes and stuff. I was like, I've never seen anything like that. It's insane. That's another topic for another day. I don't know that that needs to ever get to
Well,
that
yeah,
point. That's ridiculous.
but I think but see, and here's what I will say, because I love the rivalry games. I love all of that stuff that comes with it. But I also believe that at some point we're going to have to discuss the sportsmanship element of games, because everyone wants to see guys like play really hard and then shake hands and those things. And DJ, I just don't know if that is a reality in today's game. And as much as I want young people to be able to play and compete at the highest level and compete hard and then shake their hands, I think in some of these instances, we got to wave off the handshake and everyone, hey man, y'all can come to the numbers, wave at each other, and then we're out. Because what I don't want to see is someone seriously get hurt over something as stupid as flag planting and those things. The other thing that I would say, when you're the winning team, hey man, you already know what kind of lightning rod the flag planting is going to bring about. As the coach, you got to say, hey guys, knock it off. We're not doing that. Like, like knock it off. Like you just know what you're getting. Don't participate in it.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. And look, I don't mind the woofing and the barking and all that kind of stuff, but like, let's leave it at that, and then let's move forward. We don't need any more than that. But that was the big college football moment to me of the weekend. Even though Texas A&M had the most writing on it in terms of getting into the SEC
Mm-hmm.
championship game and maybe an elimination game for A&M. Just big picture quickly on that one. I mean, I think it's okay if we give Sark his flowers to jump into the big bad SEC and put himself in position to win it year one.
I'm gonna say a couple of things about Sark. I think Sark has probably the perfect pedigree to be a coach that has staying power at the top of the charts. His experiences with two guys that are great, legendary coaches: Pete Carroll, who is about the players first, is fun, is dynamic, it's engaging, and then Nick Saban, who is more buttoned up, more militaristic, but extremely successful. Sark has been able to take the best things of each of those programs and use it and blend it within his own personality to make Texas a monster again. And when you look at Texas size wise, they stack up to how Alabama and those teams were at their heyday under Nick Saban. But they also have a fun energy, electricity that reminds you of when USC was kind of like a rock and roll band traveling all over the country. Sark has done a great job of putting it together. And man, I can't wait to see that SEC championship game between them and Georgia, because Georgia may not be what they were, but man, their grittiness, their toughness, their competitiveness is going to make it a hard day for Texas.
Yeah, that was an insane game. 8 overtimes. Sitting there watching this, thinking every time, oh, this will be it. This will be it. This will be it. And then both teams just punching back, and eventually Georgia outlasts a very feisty Georgia Tech team. But anyways, a fun weekend of college football. We get to the NFL side of things here, Buck. I want to start first of all as we're going to roll through these games here. Chicago, Detroit. Not so much about the finish of that ball game. It's been well discussed that they just massive failure. And if you want to blame head coach, offensive coordinator, quarterback, you can probably share that. But
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately for Matt Eberflus, was not something he could survive. He gets let go after their sixth straight loss, and many in heartbreaking fashion during this run here. But let's look forward. I saw Kevin Warren, their president, came out and said this will be the most coveted job. A, you buying that? And B, is there anybody that jumps to mind that would make sense there?
Well, I mean, I think the job is coveted because it's a blue blood franchise in Chicago. If you bring Chicago back, you're a legend, because they haven't won at a high level consistently, like you would think a franchise that was originated and created by George Halas would do. What you have is you have some intriguing pieces, but I think you have to build a brand and an identity. And as much as I like Caleb Williams and I like the thought of like, oh, we're gonna throw it around the yard and we're gonna build around the franchise quarterback, I think you can attest to the importance of toughness and discipline and attention to detail in an organization and team. To me, I think the candidate that everyone is going to chase is Ben Johnson, because you not only want his creativity when it comes to the offense, you want some of the nuggets that have been gleaned from his time in Detroit and building a rough and tumble squad. Chicago has to be about that. They got to be about toughness and discipline and all of that stuff, because that city is a tough one. And I think the only way you earn the respect of the city is to build a franchise and a team that reflects the city. And some of that has to do with the toughness and the physicality of that overall team.
Yeah, I mean that's why you're going to hear a lot of talk. You're going to get an offensive guy to come in here that's not going to leave, so you can build a system around Caleb Williams, and you're not going to have the key voice of that system depart. I mean, I still think everybody, as they do almost every year, you're trying to chase Sean McVay. I mean, everybody's trying to find that. A lot of people have gone to that tree to try and find the next one because McVay has been able to bring you the innovation and the creativity, the motions, the shifts, the dynamic, schemes, and being on the cutting edge. But Bucky hasn't lost the physicality of it either. He's got a physical edge to it. Now, I know that we'll get to the Rams later, and they're not having the best
Hmm.
season, but I think that's kind of what they're chasing here. I will say, finding the head coach is going to be huge, but getting at least three upgrades along that offensive line might be equally as important, and that's going to be the role for Ryan Poles as they announce he's going to be back and kind of help lead this search for a head coach. But more importantly, they got to plug some holes on that roster, and it starts right there with the offensive line.
DJ, here's what I would say. If I am the Chicago Bears, the first thing that I'm doing is I'm thinking about how can I build a team to win the division. When I look at all the teams that are in the division,
Woo. That
all the
division
teams
is
are tough
stacked.
physical teams. Yeah, they're tough physical teams who are balanced, meaning they can run the ball, but they also can throw it all over the yard and do a bunch of different things. For me, I would say this. I think Caleb Williams has to own some of the shortcomings of the offense. I think some of it falls to the coaches to make sure that he's in the right system for who he is. But I also believe that less is more when it comes to Caleb Williams. They need to run the football and establish themselves as a physical football team who have the ability to do both run it with force and throw it all over the yard with efficiency. Until they become that team, I think Caleb Williams is going to have a tough time trying to single-handedly carry this team to greatness.
Yeah, no, I've seen a lot of good from Caleb, especially in the second half. Some of these games, putting them in a position to have a chance at it. But still, there's a lot to work on, a lot to improve there. I think there is something to that being a coveted job. It'll be fascinating to see what names emerge, and maybe they shock everybody and go back to the defensive side of the ball. I can't see that happening. The biggest game to me of the weekend in terms of the result and just styles make fights, as you always say, Philly and Baltimore. That was a slugfest.
Mm,
That was,
hmm
that was Philly coming off of a game against the Rams in LA, which was a physical game, which they beat up the Rams. The Ravens had a physical game against the Chargers, where you could say they beat up the Chargers in that game. So heavyweight clash there in Baltimore, and lo and behold, the more physical team won the ball game, and the more physical team was the Philadelphia Eagles. We can talk about Justin Tucker and missed kicks,
hmm
and that's something they're going to have to figure out there with John Harbaugh. But this was a line of scrimmage game. You knew it was going to be that. Because Buck, both these teams they're massive. They're physical along the line of scrimmage. I just thought Philadelphia is more talented along the offensive line. I thought defensive line wise, maybe a little bit of a push coming into the game. But even in this ball game, I thought the Eagles' defensive front outplayed the Ravens' defensive front. So it was definitely going to be a line of scrimmage game, and they did not give Lamar Jackson much chance to breathe back there in the pocket.
What's interesting to me is everyone loves to beat up on Nick Sirianni, but Nick Sirianni evidently is a really, really good coach because he finds a way to get it done. There are a couple of things that stood out to me. One, how he has built this team back from just the slow start, the challenging start, where everyone was really at him about the composition of his team and how he worked with that relationship with Jalen Hurts and how they subtly have changed the offense to look more like the offense that made Jalen Hurts an MVP contender. When you look at their running game with Kellen Moore, and give Kellen Moore a lot of credit, they are very creative in their running game, how they run the counter, bash schemes, and how they run power and physical and downhill and using Saquon and Jalen Hurts as two power runners as the featured part of this offense is really impressive. But it's also having the weapons on the outside in place to make it go when people load up in the box. Well constructed offense. And then the arrival of Vic Fangio to upgrade the defense, to challenge a talented collection of players to play better, to be more physical, to be disciplined and detailed. You're seeing it. And I know we have fallen in love with the Detroit Lions. By the end of the season, man, we may look up and Philadelphia is the one that is representing the NFC in the championship game.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about two teams that are difficult to defend. The Lions, we know with all the weapons that they have, but I think Jalen Hurts in the quarterback run game and the nightmare that you have with him and Saquon Barkley back there, you've got a big time tight end. You've got the weapons on the outside. You've got a They both have great offensive lines. They're big and physical. They're nightmares. The other takeaway to me on the defensive side of the ball, we've talked about, Howie Roseman over the years. He puts the money in the money positions. It's line of scrimmage. It's quarterback. Maybe not so much at running back. Maybe not so much at linebacker. Well, they go out and they get Saquon, pay him solid money.
Mm-hmm.
That's paid off in a big way. And then how about the value finds? You get N'Kobe Dean, who was to
Mm-hmm.
me was a big time, player who
Player.
fell in their lap. It was a third round. And then Zach Bond, who they didn't have to pay much money to in free agency. Two guys who are crazily instinctive linebackers who have just played awesome. They combined for 23 tackles in this game. They have gotten much better at those auxiliary positions, so to speak. We knew they're always going to be good up front. They've even invested in the past at corner. They did a big investment at the corner position in the draft this year, but they've never had a problem paying guys there or investing high picks. It's really been kind of okay. Yeah, they're not really going to pay the running backs, not really going to pay the linebackers. For having that philosophy forever, they're pretty darn good at those two positions right now.
Yeah, they are really good. And look, we give Howie Roseman his flowers a lot. But as much as we love to praise the Detroit Lions as the model franchise in terms of how to build it up, how to make it sustainable, the Philadelphia Eagles also fall into that category. They're scrimmage players, they're O-line, D-line. You can tell they invest in, you can see the talent because it's reflected in the way that they dominate at the point of attack, the weapons that they have around the quarterback. Look, the cost of doing business is the cost of doing business, but they have wide receivers in tow, but they still understand that the best way to play with the quarterback is to use him as a runner and on certain selected RPOs and all that other stuff. So to me, it's pay what you need to pay to build the team the way that you need to build it, but play the game the way that you need to play it so your best players can thrive.
Yeah, no doubt. And as we're looking at the NFC, if we're going to stay there thinking about the Philadelphia Eagles, another team that's right there is the Green Bay Packers. Coming off that game against Miami Thanksgiving night, they've won 7 of their last 8 games after a 2-2 start. The one I want to hit you on this one was Tucker Kraft, 6 for 78, the tight end. He was their second tight end. Remember, they took Luke Musgrave in that draft, then took Tucker Kraft. He was 6'04", 254, ran 4.69. It was one of the best tight end drafts we've ever seen. It was stacked at the tight end position. I looked it back up. He was my 56th player, Buck. They got him with the 78th pick. It's another reminder of why it's smart in a deep year like that to double up, because if you stick by best player available, you're going to double up when you have those years where you have a loaded class at one position and they're rewarded for going back into that pool.
DJ, you can never go wrong taking good players. And I know a lot of times we talk about positions and those things, and people don't like the BPA theory, right? Best player available. Yeah, but it doesn't fit. But when you take good players, you find a way to utilize them. And sometimes you put it on the coaches. Let's find a way to make sure that we take advantage of what we have when it comes to the talent. The Green Bay Packers have assembled a roster that is really, really talented. And it's talented because they believe in their draft and develop approach. And it has worked for them for years. It continues to work for them. And they've been able to supplement it with key free agents, so Josh Jacobs and some of the other guys that have come on board. But really, the nuts and bolts of this team, homegrown players that were drafted under that principle of we're going to draft the best player, we're going to develop them, we're going to put them on the field, and we're unafraid to live through their mistakes because we understand what it is. We're going to be better in the long run when we take this approach, particularly in a small market like Green Bay.
Yeah, and it's also sends a message that, hey, nobody get comfortable now. I don't care if I took you in the first round. I don't care if I paid you in free agency. We're going to keep adding talented players at your position. It breeds competition. They have that at a lot of positions. This is a really deep roster that Brian Gutekunst has built there. So look, I give them their love here. They're sitting here at 9-3. They're right in the mix to go chase a conference championship. So it's an impressive job there. I do want to say Tua for going into that environment. Buck, I thought he played well. They're at 5-7 right now. They're gonna need to get on a pretty big run to try and backdoor their way into the playoffs, but they are still alive here at 5-7.
Yeah, they're still alive. I think some of the things that you worry about with Tua and cold weather shows up. It's hard for a guy who doesn't have what I'll call superior arm talent, A-plus arm talent. Sometimes they play in inclement or windy conditions, but he does a really good job of working inside the numbers. And in that game, it's a lot of short, intermediate, in-breaking routes that he was able to utilize. They have to figure out, knowing how the team is constructed, how their quarterback prefers to play. To me, it's about them understanding how they need to build the team and how they need to set it up when it comes to winning their schedule so they get home games. because for as great as Tua is directing this offense, he's a different player when he has to play in the cold, and you don't want to play those cold games in the playoffs.
Yeah, no. Well, at first, you don't want to play cold games in the playoffs, but this Dolphins team, they just want to get to the playoffs. All right, it's time to Cruising to Victory, presented by Royal Caribbean. Buck, maybe it would, I don't know, on some of these cruise ships, you get off in a little bit of a cold weather area, Alaska. Maybe you get in a snowmobile, because that's what you would be doing here. When you looked at this game, weather game, Buffalo Bills just trounced the 49ers. I don't say we put a nail in their coffin because that division still hasn't really completely run away from them. But you've got a Christian McCaffrey injury. It feels like, you tell me, there's no excuses for Buffalo not to come out of the AFC this year. Like, it's all lined up for them right now. Even if they have to go on the road to Kansas City, how this team's built, what Kansas City looks like, even though they're winning ball games, this feels like it's now or never for Buffalo.
Yeah, I think there's an urgency that they're playing with. Sean McDermott has done a really good job. And remember, DJ, coming into it, many of us, I for sure thought that they were going to take a step back. I didn't think that they would be in the conversation as the team to beat in the AFC, but that's where they are. This is a team that has an urgency and energy about them. They're feisty, they're competitive, and they're well constructed. They are funny because, DJ, they don't have what we would call like a bunch of blues, a bunch of A-level players. But man, they got a collection of B's and B pluses that play to the max. And with Josh Allen playing at an MVP level, this team can knock off anybody. And what is great about what Josh Allen has done, he's matured to the point that he understands how to kind of toe that line between game manager and playmaker, and when to kind of throw his body in harm's way and when to play it kind of straight and conservative. It's really worked out for his offense.
There's been years in the past where I feel like Josh has got beat up, towards the end of the regular season and wasn't quite 100%, with his legs.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 6 rushing touchdowns this year. I went back and watched all of them. So you got 2 on zone reads, you got 3 on scrambles, you got 1 on a sneak. For a team that you can talk about maybe not the most dynamic skill positions, it's high school football. He's the X factor with what he can do with his legs. And that's why I'm just like, man, you clinched the division, your 5th consecutive AFC East crown here. I don't think it matters with this team how they're built, whether you're at home or on the road. And I'm not saying you can't shut it down, shut it down. But man, just keep Josh Allen healthy. Tell him we don't need you to be Superman down the stretch here. We punched our ticket. I need you to be 100%, because if Josh Allen is 100% healthy, Buck, and he just unleashes his athleticism, as you, a high school coach, have seen when you've got the biggest, baddest dude on your team, like, that to me is the most important thing. If they get Josh Allen healthy going into the playoffs and he can be aggressive and run, 8 to 12 times a game like he's a high school quarterback, they're going to be a very tough out, man.
Well, the beautiful thing about the way Josh Allen plays and the way that Joe Brady's calling the game, you can control and dictate how many times he touches the ball on the perimeter as a runner. You can tell him to take a little more conservative approach. And I think he has kind of learned when to insert himself into the game. Normally, DJ, when you really watch him run, he runs it in third and critical situations, 2-minute drills,
red zone.
Like, he doesn't, he's not recklessly just kind of running around at all times. He picks and chooses his thing, which is very similar to the way that Pat Mahomes uses his legs when it comes to scrambling and buying time and doing those things. As these guys get older as mobile quarterbacks, they kind of understand when they kind of use that part of their superpowers to help their team stay in games and win games.
Yeah, I think they've done a good job of picking your spots, but I think you also understand volume-wise, we get into the playoffs, we can step that up a little bit more. And I just feel like that Josh Allen with his legs has got to be a big part of this Buffalo offense for them to go chase a title, which it's all right there for them. It is set up for them. This is their time. They need to go get it done this year. Another team that's right in the mix with them, though, Buck, Pittsburgh just keeps rolling. They find different ways to win ball games. Russell Wilson goes for 414, 3 touchdowns and a pick in this ball game. I do want to give you I've got a saucy nug. It's time for Saucy Nugs presented by Wendy's, Buck. This is a saucy nug for you. Cam Hayward got a sack. That's his 6th sack this year. He's 35 years old. So my saucy nug is That is a sneaky position that can age well. I think of defensive tackles, guys like
Mm.
Ted Washington. I think of Calais Campbell, who's still going. Cam Hayward still playing at a high level. We think of like, okay, quarterbacks, kickers, they can play a long time. So you age out of obviously running back very early. Receiver seems to be about age 30. Even edge rushers, as you maybe lose a little bit of juice. Defensive tackles, surprisingly, some of these big time defensive tackles age quite well.
DJ, you know why? Because it's about toughness and technique at that position. Tough guys can hold the point and anchor at their nose tackles. Technique guys can use their hands and whip, as we talk about, like the tomato can on the inside. So you have that kind of production. You're right when you think about some of the guys who played a long time at the position, the Ted Washingtons of the world. Yeah, they were older guys, but man, their strength, their ability to kind of control it at the point of attack. I think about Vince Wilfork and what he was able to do. There is something to that, and DJ, that experience matters. And we've talked about it, and we've talked about it in baseball terms before about being strong right down the middle. It always applies in football too. Having that gray beard in the middle, whether it's at nose tackle, linebacker, free safety, the intelligence, the experience, the instincts, those things matter. I think we're seeing that with Cam Hayward.
Anything quickly on the Cincinnati side of it? Man, they score a bazillion points and lose again.
Yeah, just don't have the defensive personnel to be able to compete. I love Joe Burrow and what Joe Burrow has been able to do, but they're not able to complement what they do offensively with their defense. And I'll say this, man, they give away too many games at the beginning of the year. We've talked about Andy Reid and how Andy Reid and those guys jump out ahead of the group. You know, they win those early games, and so they don't have to kind of scuffle and scrape to get into the postseason. The Bengals have consistently given away games the first month of the season, and I feel like they spend their time in chase mode where they should be trying to win the division and those things with the talent that they have on the roster.
Yeah, no, what a disappointing year for the Cincinnati Bengals. There's no doubt about it. Let's get to Minnesota, Arizona. This was a close game, comeback win. I had this thought. I looked this up, and this is my takeaway on this game. I'm curious to see not only how Minnesota finishes the year 10-2, having a phenomenal year, but where does this go in the offseason? Let's get ahead of ourselves just for 1 second. They draft a quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. He gets hurt, so he's on the shelf. Not going to see him at all this year. Sam Darnold, you have the keys to the car. Sam Darnold's having a great year. Let me give you the numbers he's projected for. He's on pace for right now, Buck. You ready? He's on pace for 4,182 yards. He's completed 67.6% of his passes. So that's the completion percentage. That's the yardage. I went back and looked up Alex Smith, right? You draft Patrick Mahomes, but we're going to be patient and we're going to sit him behind Alex Smith. Alex Smith that year, Alex Smith threw for 4,042 yards, 67.5%. So just literally almost identical numbers to what Sam did. Sam's on pace for 33 touchdowns, 14 picks. Alex Smith, 26 and 5 in that year. So Sam's having this year, which is incredible. And there's part of me just sitting here going like, well, you can't let him walk. I know you drafted another quarterback, but he's playing at this high of a level. It's going to be fascinating to see if they believe J.J. McCarthy has another gear. Obviously, the Chiefs believe that Mahomes had another gear, and they were proved right. Because in a year where the draft doesn't look great at quarterback, man, Sam Darnold in a if you were to tag and trade him, you'd have a heck of an asset there too. So, man, that is just forecasting into the offseason, one of the fascinating decisions that's going to be forthcoming.
Let's add to it, right? So Daniel Jones signs with the practice squad to be around Kevin O'Connell and with the Minnesota Vikings for the rest of the year. It gives Kevin O'Connell and the front office an opportunity to look at Daniel Jones to see where he is, to kind of weigh the pros and cons of whether he is a reclamation project that they can give the Sam Darnold blueprint and utilize him while JJ McCarthy is continuing to develop as they auction off Sam Darnold for some more picks. That's why it was such a wise move for them to get in on Daniel Jones, for Kevin O'Connell to kind of just throw verbal bouquets in Daniel Jones' direction, because it's another chip, man. It's another pawn on the chessboard, that another piece that they can use to help this team have staying power at the top of the division or at the top of the NFC.
Yeah, well, it's a big win for the Minnesota Vikings. Comeback win. It's a really complete football team. Arizona 6-6. They're still right in the mix, just behind the team we're going to talk about next here. That's Seattle. Big comeback win for the Seahawks against the Jets. Jets had them dead to rights. Then Seattle. Leonard Williams has been playing lights out, man. He's been awesome the last few weeks. His tape last week was fun to watch. I'm excited to get a chance to really dig in and watch the cut-ups in this one because some of the highlights right here, what he just did to John Simpson is ridiculous. And then you look at the pick six. He was all over the field, man. All over the field for Leonard Williams. So big win for the Seattle Seahawks. JSN 4 for 74. He's got 70 catches, over 800 yards and 4 touchdowns. What a heck of a year for him so far as well.
Yeah, really good break. I mean, really impressive breakout season for JSN as a slot receiver because he's doing most of his damage from the slot. We talked about him. He was a great route runner. He's another one of those skilled pass catchers that we have seen have a lot of success in the league. Love all of that. What I really like about the Seattle Seahawks team is I feel like they've built upon the legacy of Pete Carroll and what they did there, but they've done it in a different way. Meaning Pete Carroll and those guys were really good at developing players, really good at taking chances on players and kind of putting them in spots where it worked out. I think you have all of that same developmental approach with a more structured, disciplined, detailed leader in Mike Macdonald. And as they're kind of embracing his style and listening to Jaron Reed and some of the other players talk about how they needed a little more structure, to me, John Snyder really did a great job of picking a head coach that could take the program to the next step. Mike Macdonald appears to have the potential to take this program, this organization, this team to the next level just based on what he adds to the team as a coach and leader.
Yeah, I like watching them, man. They are fast. They play hard. They're physical. It's been fun to watch this entire really team come together, and JSN having a phenomenal campaign there, reaching his potential as well. All right, staying in the NFC, Rams Saints. The Rams just one game back. Big win for them against the New Orleans Saints, who are just kind of they're hanging around. They're in these games, but they're 4-8, not really going anywhere. And I don't want to say it this way, Buck, but they just feel like they could be stuck in the not going to be terrible, not going to be good, world. They could be stuck in that world for a few years, especially as they try and navigate some salary cap stuff going forward.
Yeah, no one wants to be in that world. It's like the worst place to be. You're not bad enough to benefit from being a bad team and get a top pick that can help you flip the roster. You're not good enough to compete and be a serious contender in the postseason. So you're right around average. And when you look at this team, you just think about where they need to improve. Man, there's so many pieces that they need to add to be one of those teams that can compete with the emerging teams in the NFC. The best thing that probably could happen for the Saints is that it kind of falls apart down the stretch. They're able to get into the top 10, top 5 of pick, and they're able to start the rebooting process of this team because no matter who becomes a coach, they're going to have to blow this thing up a little bit and kind of build it from the ground up.
Yeah, no, interesting to see how they go forward. The Rams side of things, they've got Buffalo at home this week. Massive game. Massive game. They were a little bit short against the heavyweight against the Philadelphia Eagles. They go win on the road, big win over the Saints, but now you come home and you got a big heavyweight coming in Buffalo. So that's going to be a challenge. And if you thought the Philadelphia Eagles took over that stadium, wait till you see Bills Mafia. That's going to be a home game for them. So it's going to be a big test. Next week will be big for the Rams. Theory on this next one, Tampa Bay, Carolina. We've seen, and this was a game, Tampa Bay give them their flowers. They won the ball game. They get back to 6-6. It's an overtime win. But I want to hit Bryce Young on this one. A fourth quarter comeback. He made some big throws. You're seeing him get better and better and better. And this is my takeaway. Remember Drew Brees early on in his career? Yep. And I'm not saying Bryce Young is Drew Brees, but it took a minute, right? Drew Brees didn't just launch right into the NFL. And the reason being is there's a difference between the physically gifted who, can get out there and do things physically, and that buys them time while they're trying to learn. Then there's guys like Bryce, and he will put him in the category of Drew Brees as guys that rely on mastery more than the physical gifts. So you give a guy who's not as physically gifted more time to become a master in his offense, the understanding's there. You saw it when I watched this game and watched this tape this morning. The anticipation was excellent. The timing was there. He was able to fit some balls in because of that. I think maybe it requires just more patience when you got guys who are going to rely on mastery over physicality is what I'm getting at.
Let's say we start putting prospects into the two different buckets when it comes to quarterback. We have the talented ones, and then we have the technical ones. Bryce Young
That's a
will
good way to
fall
put
into
it.
the technical category. Everything has to be lined up, footwork, mechanics, understanding of the system has to be right for him to play at a high level. When you talk about Drew Brees, that's how Drew Brees strikes me. And and people forget this, it took Drew Brees having Phillip Rivers right on his bumper before he became the
Mm-hmm.
Pro Bowl player that he became. It took Bryce Young having to sit down before he was able to kind of find his way in those things. The other thing that I believe is underrated, if you go back and look at Bryce Young's history, going all the way back to high school, DJ, this is the first time that he's ever had on-field adversity. Everything was easy for him, and it's not his fault. But look, he was a great player at Mater Dei High School in Santa Ana, won a ton, went to Alabama, won a ton, great player. This is the first time between the lines he's been dealt the short end of the stick. He has a short deck when it comes to the cards. He is
Yeah.
learning and showing that he has the toughness and the resilience to bounce back. The Carolina Panthers have one. And look, man, I think they will regret pulling the plug on him. I think he's shown enough that someone would take him and have his game go to the next level with more time and experience.
Who are they finding better than him right now? I don't see one out there, man. He's shown plenty to me that you need to, again, swing your support behind him. Get some more guys that can catch the
Mm-hmm.
football, for crying out loud. I mean, every time you watch him, I feel like there's a big drop in every single one of these games. Drew Brees, to wrap that up, by the way, to put a pin in this, as we look forward, Drew Brees, 28 touchdowns, 31 interceptions in his first 2 years as an NFL starting quarterback. Time for Play Football, presented by New Era. Max Crosby hit the field with New Era to show youth players what it takes to be relentless in the NFL. Check out some behind the scenes from the Pass Rush Clinic, where the Raiders Pro Bowler broke down some techniques that make him one of the NFL's best. Thank you to New Era Cap, the official cap of NFL Sidelines.
What's up, y'all? I'm Max Crosby. I'm here with New Era and Play Football. He's already going to be waiting for me. That's why get off is so important. That was good. Because when you're rushing, you want to win now. Moving. Good job. The best advice I ever got, protect your square. And then I'm throwing this elbow like I'm about to break a brick wall down. It's just about being under control and keeping your eyes straight at the elbow or ball. Whoa! We good? You have to turn into a fighter, and that starts with your hands. There's a counter off of everything, but you want to be throwing the punch first. I'll see you on the field.
Well, Buck, Max Crosby, Brock Bowers, and the Las Vegas Raiders, they always played the Kansas City Chiefs tough. They almost got them again on this one. The Chiefs, they get away with it. They win 19-17 on a snap that came a little earlier than Aiden O'Connell was expecting. But lo and behold, here the Chiefs are. They clinch a playoff berth for the 10th consecutive season. I'm trying to be balanced here and respectful of an 11-1 football team, while also not ignoring what my eyes are telling me, which is this is a vulnerable team in Kansas City.
Yeah, vulnerable team. And sometimes, DJ, you see this with championship teams. Like, they're able to win even after they're out of their window or out of their prime. And what the Chiefs have is they have a toughness and a know-how of how to win these close games. And when you have Pat Mahomes, who is the ultimate eraser, you can win some of those. To me, what I see from the Chiefs is a team that is kind of coming together on offense. DeAndre Hopkins coming over to be the complement to Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco coming back. The main issue that they have is they can't block at the point of attack. Their offensive tackle situation is one of the worst that we've seen in football. And until they're able to solve that, yeah, it's going to be hard for the Chiefs to play like we're accustomed to them playing, because they simply can't protect number 15 in the pocket.
Buck, I'm scared to do it with the Chiefs, but man, this reminds me a lot of that Philly team. I believe it was last year, right, where Philly gets off to that unbelievable record, but people just weren't buying it. And now I look at the schedule. The Kansas City Chiefs, their last 5 games, they play 4 teams who would be in the playoffs if the season ended today. They got 4 tough games coming up in their next 5. Would it shock you at all if Kansas City were to lose 2 or 3 of these games coming down the stretch? I mean, there's such a razor-thin margin right now.
I mean, look, they're living dangerously for sure. Like, you can't win 14 straight one-score games the way that they're doing, blocking field goals, finding ways for people to drop snaps and errant snaps and all of the other stuff. But I am hopeful when I look at the team. And when I watched the game on Friday, it was really them leaning on the vets. Kelsey, Hopkins, trying to get Isaiah Pacheco going. And then the magic that Pat Mahomes has, it's different. And it's going to be a harder grind for this team in the postseason. Not quite ready to pour dirt on them, but they're vulnerable for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to see them next week going there with the Chargers. Chargers coming off a big win against the Atlanta Falcons. How's this for a saucy nug, Buck? It's the lowest yards, the fewest amount of yards the Chargers have had in a road win since 1960. So the offense did next to nothing. They get a pick six. Tarheeb Still, 5th-round pick out of Maryland corner, has 2 picks, including that pick six. Marcus May has a pick after showing up this week. Tony Jefferson, who had been scouting for the Ravens a couple years ago, he comes off the practice squad. He has a bunch of tackles. Troy Dye gets in there and plays well at the linebacker spot when you have no Perriman. So a lot of Joe Ortiz's moves, they pay off in a win over Atlanta where Kirk Cousins was not good. Let's just put it that way with 4 picks.
Yeah, not good. And I guess you probably were in the booth singing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow that no one can deny because they do a really good job of getting guys to buy in. And we can talk about Jim Harbaugh being quirky and funny and all of those other things, but what he does is he gets unbelievable buy-in from his players. And this team is all the way bought in on the way that they have to play. DJ, it doesn't matter if they have to light up the scoreboard, if they have to play a grinded-out affair, if they have to find a way to get things done on the special teams, they do it. And they are a very dangerous team because, to me, they're the unorthodox boxer that you don't want to face in the ring. They can make you play their style. And, man, just like we saw Michigan and Ohio State, like sometimes, man, that style makes every game close. And they're so used to winning these close games and making these clutch plays. They know how to get it done. There's no fear in this team.
From the game I was at to the game you were at, tell me about what went down there in Jacksonville outside, obviously, the huge hit on Trevor.
Look, I think you have to talk about the huge hit on Trevor. Here you have Trevor Lawrence, your franchise quarterback, trying to play through a shoulder injury to come back and give the team some juice. Not thinking that, okay, we're going to get into the postseason, but hey, man, I'm the franchise quarterback. I'm the captain. I have to go down with the ship. And to see very early in the game, he is absolutely obliterated and knocked out. Very disappointing. I would say the response from the team is the part that really was disappointing to me, and it shed a light on the culture and the team in terms of the toughness and togetherness. DJ, you work for 2 organizations where I know if that happened to the franchise quarterback, they still would be brawling in the parking lot right now. It is something that we talk about, and we talk about in scouting. There's a code, and you always want to make sure when you're with the Ravens and the Eagles, the players have to fit the personality of the team. And I'm worried that when you have an incident like this, it kind of pulls back the curtain on what the Jaguars aren't. And that is like a really, really tough and physical football team, because that should have been 60 minutes of vigilante justice being served. And I didn't see that. And so it's alarming and disappointing for me.
Yeah, that was a throwback hit to like the Steve Pellure hit he took from Mike Singletary going back. Like, remember that? I think it was maybe late 80s, early 90s, something like that. That was I haven't seen a hit like that in a long time. But the Jags, it's just been one of those years struggling along here. 2-10. Houston trying to find themselves here. They're sitting at 8-5, looking like could be an interesting 4-5 seed matchup in the playoffs with either a team like Baltimore or the Chargers potentially being the 5th seed. That would be an interesting matchup there with the Houston Texans. All right, it is time for Monday Night Football preview presented by Hard Rock Bet. The Monday night game, Cleveland, Denver. Bo Nix, to me, is the headliner. I'm excited to see him. See if he can keep this thing rolling here at Mile High. He's been awesome at home.
He's been awesome at home, and Sean Payton has shown that you can take a younger player, a rookie, who has a lot of college experience, and you can help him evolve from being a manager to a playmaker. The way that they have slowly but steadily developed Bo Nix, to me, is a blueprint for how other teams should bring along their young quarterback. Started out being very conservative, run game screens, shorts, selected isolated passes down the field, to now he is running the full playbook. Look, man, it's a testament to Sean Payton and his development of quarterbacks, but also to Bo Nix and his readiness to play at a high level.
I think this could be a game for the Denver defense as well. Sacks, interceptions. They could come in bunches against Cleveland. Cleveland, They're going to fight. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to try and push the ball down the field. But with that, you're going to get some turnovers. You're going to get some sacks. So, man, the Broncos are playing really, really good football. Looking forward to that clash with the Chargers coming up, by the way, on a Thursday night in the very, very near future. That's going to be a big ball game. All right, Buck, this was fun. We covered a lot of grounds. Didn't quite get to every single game. We'll have time throughout the week to touch on some of those other teams we missed. Go ahead, Buck. What you got?
No, that's what we do. We'll talk about it next time, maybe on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. So be on the lookout for that. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.